Glad to see everyone here today. I've got a couple questions before we get started. How many have seen this demonstration before? Would you raise your hand? Okay, we have 1, 2, okay. How many have heard of Mackinac Island? How many have been to Mackinac Island? Oh, a goodly amount. How many left Mackinac Island without any fudge? No one. You know why? You can't get on the boat if you don't have fudge. They won't let you off the island. Well, I'd like to welcome you here. What we're going to do today is we're going to share with you how we make old-fashioned fudge. We're going to be demonstrating the old-fashioned art of fudge making. I'm going to make it here. You all will be able to taste it. Now, how many are here because they heard there were free samples? Oh, even more. Maybe that's the trick, huh? So anyway, we'll be doing that. One of the other things that I'd like to do is take time during the demonstration and then afterwards if you have any other questions, and that will be to help you make your fudge better. If I can help you in any way to perfect your recipe, I'll be happy to do that. Most everybody that's made fudge know and understand that it's an art form, not a science. And somebody can give you a recipe and you can take it home and it won't work the way it works for them at their home. So anyway, and we will have some recipes that we'll give out later. It's a homemade fudge recipe that works really well. It is not, I repeat, it is not the recipe that I'll be demonstrating up here. This is a secret recipe, but it is a very good recipe and it works well. So with that, we'll get started. One of the first things I like to do is suggest that number one, everything is clean, everything is ready to go, and what I suggest is to think ahead, because one of the problems are if when you need your chocolate or you need some of the utensils, if they're not readily available, it can affect what you're doing. And that includes the thermometer, the knives, the spatulas, and the things that I use, and the things that then you would use in your own kitchen. So think ahead and have everything ready in the quantities and the way that you need them. So we'll start, and I have this already pre-weighed. And I'll explain to you in just a second what's in here. Okay, in the ingredients that I just put into the copper kettle, there was sugar, corn syrup, inverted sugar, which is liquid sugar. There's raw chocolate and a pinch of salt. Now we'll put the cream in. And again, you can use, in the recipe it says half and half. You can use half and half. Or you can use whipping cream, or you can use a cream like I'm using here. Okay, now we're ready, and I'll turn it on, and we're cooking. Now, one of the things, can you see this in the video? Does it show up? Does that help? Can you see it now? Okay. Now, one of the things that the recipe that I'll hand out later will suggest is that you want to wash down the sides of the kettle. And the reason I suggest that is so that you won't burn the fudge. I'm not going to be doing that today, and I'm going to be very gentle on how I stir the fudge. But if you were doing it at home, you'd want to make sure that the sides were washed down so that you don't have a burning and you don't then overcook the product that's in here. I'll keep moving it, and again, it doesn't have to be a harsh movement. In a minute, you'll see me using what I call our figure 8 stirring method here, which will keep it all moving and won't allow for any hot spots in the kettle. In just a second, we'll take some time and answer some questions as this is cooking. If I were about 6 feet tall, this would be a little easier. I'm standing on my tiptoes back here as it is. Now it's starting to melt. And again, the ingredients that I use, they're all natural. They're all California ingredients. We use no preservatives. And most of these ingredients are available in one form or another that you could actually get and use in your own recipe. I have people ask me, Fred, what makes your fudge world famous? Because some of you may know that our fudge is world famous. And basically it seems like there's three answers to that question, and I'll go over each one, and actually each one will be sort of demonstrated during the actual demonstration. But one thing is the recipe that I use is 100 years old. Actually it's about 106 or 107 years old. And no, I'm not that old. I learned to make fudge from one of the men that actually helped the guy who invented fudge back on Mackinac Island in northern Michigan in the late 1800s. So the recipe is very important. There are a lot of good fudge recipes out there. Maybe some of you have a good fudge recipe. If you do, if you care to send it to me, I'm going to publish a small booklet if you'd like to have it published with a little story. We're going to be doing that in the next year. So take our name and address and send it to me if you'd like, along with a little story, and we'll be happy to include that. So the recipe is very important. The next thing that is very important, and that's the quality of the ingredients, and not only the quality of the ingredients, but being very accurate in how you measure them and how you use them. And that's why you'll see that I use a thermometer. I don't use the method of dropping the product into water. I have done that, but 1/4 degree will make a difference in my fudge. So it's very, very critical to get the right temperature. A lot of times that only comes from experience and doing it 3 or 4 times in your kitchen. The recipe that we'll be giving out at the end calls for a temperature of 226 degrees. And again, that was with that setting and that circumstance. Humidity, temperature, all plays a part, and you'll just have to experiment with it. Hopefully that'll work for you the first time. If not, you might want to play with the temperature a little bit. So the ingredients are not only critical as far as the quality, but the quantity, and make sure that all the measurements are very accurate. And then you want to make sure that you cook it to a precise temperature and keep track of that, because you'll be surprised from one time to the next. You'll say, and I think I took that to 226 degrees, and you may have gone to only 225 and a half, and that will affect the way your product will come out. And so you want to make sure that you keep an accurate log as to what you're doing. Now I've got a second here. Why don't I answer a couple of questions? There's always some questions right about now. Who has a question? Yes. Does it make a difference if you have a copper kettle? That's a good question. Copper and marble and the tools that I'm using by and large are the traditional tools and method that was used. I use copper because it conducts the heat very, very evenly, and I don't get any hot spots. I have lots of people that use stainless steel pots and pans, and they use a stainless steel table. So it's more authentic as to the way it was done, but it's not, I don't believe it's crucial for the final outcome if you do everything else. But it does represent the way that we've done it for 100 years in northern Michigan. Another question?
What do you mean washing the sides?
What you would do here is to have like a pastry brush with a little bit of water, and just very gently go around the outside, the inside of the kettle, but above the product. So that, and what you're trying to do is stop that from burning on the side of the kettle. I'm moving it around and stirring it, and I've done this enough that it won't. Well, you probably want to do it 2 or 3 times. You don't want to put too much liquid in, because then that's going to take longer for it to cook. But the main thing you're trying to do is just not have it burn. Yes? I thought I saw another hand back there. Another thing people ask me about, in addition to the kettle, is the marble. And again, this is a small piece of marble. In our store, we use a 1,000-pound 4-inch marble table. And believe it or not, at the end of the day, they'll get so hot that you can barely put your hand on them. Oftentimes when we're cooking real heavy and I've got a lot of product to make, about 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'll actually put ice on the table to start cooling it. And again, it's not critical that the table be ice cold. That's not the purpose. It does take the heat out, but it's a perfect surface to work on. And as you see, as I demonstrate the old-fashioned art of fudge making, that it works perfectly to bring this up into a nice long loaf after it crystallizes. And I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. Okay, we're almost boiling here now. How many that were on Mackinac Island actually bought fudge while they were there? Will you raise your hand? Okay. And did you count the number of fudge stores that were there by any chance? A lot of them, right? There are 13 fudge stores on Mackinac Island right now, and which is by far the largest number of any of the different businesses that are on the island. It was an island that was made famous in the movie Somewhere in Time, and believe it or not, that's the way it is today, just like it was in the movie, and in fact the way it's been for over 100 years. There are no cars, everything is horse-drawn, or bicycle if you prefer, but there are no motor vehicles on Mackinac Island. Okay, we're almost ready to put the thermometer in. I mentioned 2 of the 3 things that make our fudge world famous. One being the recipe of 105 or 6 years old. Number 2, the ingredients, the quality of the ingredients that we're able to get, particularly in California. And thirdly is an experiential aspect or factor, and that's the actual handcrafting of the fudge. And you'll see after we pour it out on the table, we'll let it cool for a brief period of time, and then I'll start stirring it with this large scraper. And that, knowing as I stir it and feeling it crystallize, or as we say, grain up, makes all the difference in the world in our fudge, and you'll be able to taste that and understand that in just a few minutes also, just by watching it being made right up here. Did I see somebody else have a question? I see so much movement that it's hard for me to tell sometimes. Can you see that okay on the video? Is it okay? It's just about ready to boil. In fact, it's starting to boil right now. See, he's crying because it's not ready yet. Is that right? No, not the fudge is doing it. That's what happens when you don't get my fudge regularly.
When you say you're using California products today, when do you use it on Mackinac Island?
Okay, as far as the origin of the product, that's a good question. Here we're able to basically go right to the source. All of our nuts are premium quality nuts. We use C&H cane sugar. I use Guittard, not Ghirardelli, but Guittard chocolate from San Francisco. And everything is fresh. I mean, it's so much different making a product here in California where you can readily access them. In northern Michigan, it's another story. We were able to get good products, but they're certainly not as fresh, because if you stand on your tiptoes, you can see the end of the earth from northern Michigan. We use similar products, but they just were not as fresh. And as always, you know.